Hey everybody, this is Elenbaas from Nightlight Astrology, and these are your horoscopes for July of 2019. So this is the Sun and Rising Sign horoscope for Pisces. You may notice that I am not actually in my office. That's because I'm on vacation this week visiting my mom with my wife and daughters. We're hanging out here for the 4th. So I will be doing some recordings here this week, catching up on the eclipses. And I'm pretty stoked to see, how this eclipse is going to play out for each of the individual signs. It's been really fun recording these, and I hope that you'll also leave me your stories and tell me how take a look. So this is for Pisces Sun, and action really is focused for you this month on your 5th house. Now, that's where the solar eclipse is happening right away on July 2nd. So you got a solar eclipse happening right there in the 5th house. Traditionally, this was a house that was associated with good fortune and spontaneous pleasure or joy, things that came to you in life that would adorn your life, add to it, bless it, or provide benefits. It's also associated with anything that we might do for fun, pleasure, entertainment, recreation, sexuality, creativity. So you also have things like sexuality and even childbirth or pregnancy related to the 5th house. But in a broader sense, it just has to do with joy. And so with a solar eclipse happening in this house this month, you could see anything from people getting pregnant to people finding new avenues or outlets for fun or pleasure in their life, to themes related to sexuality or creativity, to themes related to sports, or even doing something, getting involved with something in the sports or entertainment or even like restaurant industry. I've seen all of the above happen with eclipses in the 5th house. But otherwise, you're also looking at themes sometimes possibly related to the parents or family's money or estate or wealth being really important. That's because it's the 2nd house from the 4th, which represents the money or finances of one's parents or family. So any all of the beginning relative to those themes because of a eclipse in the sign of Cancer. So that really starts the month off. Now, we move forward, we're going to get to July 8th and July 9th as the next really important transit in the month. And that's going to be a conjunction between Mercury and Mars in the sign of Leo, happening in your 6th place, right as Mercury is turning retrograde. And of course, these two planets are also square to Uranus. Now, I'll just be honest with you and say that the 6th house is not an easy house. It was traditionally a house of strife. Mercury retrograde with Mars in this house square to Uranus can be pretty nasty, just in terms of the kinds of things that come into your environment and sort of interrupt your flow, that provide you with health challenges, a fender bender, a sprained ankle, whatever the case might be. This is just a place where you're dealing with sort of bad luck or just difficult events or difficult encounters that are more hostile, confrontational, that sometimes involve enemies, or that will sometimes involve contentious situations, or just things happening that get in the way and that cause delays or challenges or setbacks. So that's the worst of it, right? I just like to get it out of the way, and I'm not someone who's going to try to whitewash the houses and make them all pretty and nice. In ancient astrology, some of the houses were just difficult because certain times in life are just sometimes more challenging. So any kind of setback or challenges that come in this month, especially around this Mercury retrograde, starting on, really between July 8th and July 9th is when this one really gets going. I'll show you, if I move this forward a day, you'll see Mercury retrograding into the conjunction with Mars. So right as that's pushing through, the other thing that could come up would be the potential for more volatile communication dynamics. So you got Mercury, planets related to communication. You have Mars, planets related to war. So the potential for power struggles or conflict, debate, hostility, contention in words and speech is very strong. It could also be about a radical desire to break free or claim independence or get out of an agreement or a contract or break off communication with someone, or to, again, be sort of erratic communication, or unexpected erratic breakdowns of communication or technology, or even things related to cars or travel. Those are all possibilities. The other thing that could come up here is the need or desire to stand up or fight for something, and that could be a positive. The feeling of I'm going to stick up for someone who's an underdog. I'm going to give myself in service to something, fighting for something. That was the traditional meaning of the sixth house, as a place of volunteers and soldiers, for example. That has this connotation of being a place that's related to service sometimes. I'm going to serve something, but it's going to be some kind of revolutionary cause. I'm going to canvass for a politician, do some kind of grassroots activism or something like that. Again, the beware here with Mercury and Mars and Leo is to let the ego get out of control, or to become grandiose or theatrical and get into ego struggles with people. The potential for some kind of new or revolutionary technology to be used for the sake of getting something done, implementing something. Possibly also this has to do if you employ people or if you hire people. This may have something to do with some kind of challenges or something that's kind of non-ordinary or outside of the box, maybe even a new technology, or hiring someone new, or buying something new that will help you, around the house or office. So employing something to use could be a part of this as well, and something new, or and possibly having to revise or fix something that breaks. That might be a part of it as well. So those are a few things to think about with the Mercury retrograde. Now, if we go on from there, we're going to spin into this just like incredibly intense zone between the 10th and the 21st. Now, during this time, you're going to see a series of oppositions from Venus in Cancer and the Sun in Cancer to Saturn and Pluto in Capricorn between the 10th and 21st. During this entire period of time, there's a lot of things that come up. I'm going to try to keep it pretty simple, with the 11th house eclipse being the focal point. The 11th house eclipse on July 16th, lunar eclipse in Capricorn in the 11th house, focuses on the topic of friends, allies, benefactors, and groups, or anything that has to do with your ambitions in the world and who or what you're trying to use or take advantage of as a means of reaching your goal. That's all 11th house stuff traditionally. When there's a lunar eclipse in there, it usually means a culmination and an ending. With Saturn and Pluto, not always so easy. Constraint, limitation, the force of necessity, fate. So fated transformational events and potentially endings, or deep transformations that require more work or that are a little heavier. That is the theme, and it's in the 11th house, related to friends, groups, colleagues, allies, people that you rely on for something, people that have supported you in some way, groups or organizations you belong to, as well as larger social circles or friendships that you have, and deeper, more heavier events in that area. Now, as that's happening, again, we have Venus and the Sun moving through oppositions from the 5th house. This brings up some really interesting themes. Saturn and Pluto in the 11th, with that eclipse, they're really sort of thinking about how to get ahead, how to achieve, how to accomplish. They're thinking about the discipline needed to climb the mountain, and that's their focus. Cancer in the 5th is thinking more about creating deep, meaningful, sweet emotional bonds, finding pleasure, joy, spontaneity, thinking about children, thinking about creative life, and thinking about how to enjoy, thinking about how to find happiness and pleasure. So sometimes if we're too ambitious and too focused and sort of, just climbing the mountain and never taking any time for ourselves, we get exhausted, and others get exhausted by us, and eventually we appear sort of ruthless and miserly. If we don't allow for non-goal oriented, sweet, emotionally connected space in our lives with those that we care about, with our lovers or our friends, or your girlfriends or your buddies, or you don't have time and space for going out, playing games, doing things that are joyful and not really for the sake of some larger goal. You get exhausted, you get drained if you don't have that space. And you become cynical as well. So there's a challenge this month to focus on goals and dreams and ambitions, but to not focus so hard that you lose touch of what really matters is also the emotional sweetness in your life and the sweetness of your connections with others. There could also be a theme in the air right now about trying to capitalize, trying to use and get ahead, trying to create the best possible situation for oneself so that one can get what one wants. So sometimes, for example, people in the creative world, or even people that want to have kids, people who are trying to get pregnant or whatever, they're trying to get pregnant not really because they want a kid, not because they want a soul, but because they're like, well, if I don't get pregnant and I don't have kids, then my life is somehow incomplete. It's almost as though there's an external standard or idea of what happiness looks like. And it's like, well, I have to have the white picket fence and the house and the spouse and the kid and so I'm taking all of these steps. And our emotional energy gets channeled into all of these very rigid, traditional goals and ambitions. And when that happens, obviously, sometimes there'll be times in our life where our plan for success, if it's not filled with heart, if there's not some spontaneity in it, if there's not some unplanned quality, it'll get the best of us. There'll be a breakdown. There'll be something will get thrown in the spokes of the wheel as it's turning, and all of a sudden we'll have a little breakdown moment and realize things aren't going as I planned. My life is not going to turn out. It's not all in my control. And can we recognize that might be the best fortune that we have when our plans don't go our way? These are really good questions for the 5th house, 11th house axis, considering the heavy lunar eclipse on the 16th in the 11th house, which is associated with goals, dreams, wishes, etc., and pitted against the more spontaneous, emotional, familial kind of feeling of the Cancer energy in the 5th. So those are just some good things to consider as during that period between July 10th and July 21st. Now, when we go forward to July 31st, the last big transit of the month, you're going to see another new moon happening in the same month, 2 new moons in 1 month. This new moon is, again, focused in Leo in your 6th house, hitting the square, again, to Uranus in your 3rd house. Now, this energy is very much like the Mercury retrograde, but a little lighter. One thing that's happening here at the same time, Mercury's turning direct. There's kind of something's coming full circle here. This, again, has the potential to be about a turn of events that is difficult. The 6th house, again, loves to throw us events that seem to interrupt, stifle, make us work harder. It's just not fun, or it brings up health challenges. And so the idea of something that the month ahead of August being about potentially delays, interruptions, setbacks, to sort of challenge our plan and our sense of control. I would encourage all Pisceans to really go with the flow and to not fight against those things that come up and challenge our plot, or your plan, but ride with them instead. Be patient, be curious, and try to stay home in your emotional center. Because when your plans break down right now and you struggle against them, it's very possible that you'll burn bridges, hurt yourself and others that you care about, etc. Also, if you're feeling, or if others are feeling like, people are getting really egotistical and really defensive and proud and, kind of big ego Leo stuff, right? In the 6th house, that could be very contentious. There could be a real theme of like ego battles that comes up when lots of Leo, especially Mars in Leo, is passing through that 7th place. With Venus square Uranus, the potential for separations in relationships because of pride is also very strong possibility during this retrograde for you, and at the end of the month through this picture of Venus square Uranus at the new moon. That'll carry over into August, so you want to keep your eye on that. Otherwise, I also like this as a time of, again, putting beliefs and convictions into practice or tangible service in the world, having some kind of revolutionary mindset that comes in and says, I've got a new solution to an old problem, or I'm gonna take a new approach to solving or fixing something or working on something I've been struggling with, and then implementing it and working really hard on it, so that there may be this kind of productive, innovative quality, even if it's a little, even if it requires a lot of hard work, that may be there for you right now too. So Pisces, that's what I've got for you this month. Let me know how it goes. I'd love to hear from you as the eclipses come through and just hear how you're handling them. I will be doing a few live casts this week for the solar eclipse and more. I'll be here from my guest room studio. So Have a great month, and I look forward to connecting with you again for August horoscope. Okay, take care.